Hey, what is up guys? How are we doing? The GTX 1080 Ti is here and I've got my hands on the Asus Strix edition. And I've been working on this video all day. I mean, I got up pretty early and it's now, what, 7 o'clock? But it has been 100% worth it because the performance of this card is pretty ridiculous. And I don't normally like to give the game away, as it were, before I get to the end of the video. But this is just a stupidly quick card. But of course it comes with a massive price tag. Now this Asus Strix edition features a 3-fan design. It looks very similar to the previous version, so the 1080 Strix versus this, the 1080 Ti, except there's a few differences. Of course spec wise it's clocked higher, and we've got 11GB of GDDR5X versus the 8GB that was found on the old card. But then one other difference, and one difference that may be the difference between you getting the 1080 and the 1080 Ti, is the fact that this Strix edition, it features a 2.5 slot design, which means that it's slightly wider than before, so you won't be able to put it in an ITX chassis unless you've got an extra slot, and it does limit you in terms of SLI in micro ATX cases, because if you could sandwich 2 before, you may not, and you in fact probably won't be able to do SLI with this card now in a micro ATX system, but that is fairly niche, but do bear that in mind. Otherwise, it's pretty much business as usual. Unlike the Founders Edition, on the port selection of this particular card, we've got 2 DisplayPort, 2 HDMI 2.0, and then 1 DVI. So if you are sorry to see the DVI go on the Founders Edition, then you will be very happy here. Now the rear of the card features a backplate with an Asus sort of logo, it's the ROG logo, and this is all illuminated once you get it into your chassis. And once you do that, it's actually a really good looking card. You can sync it up with Aura Sync to the rest of anything in your case that also has Aura Sync compatibility, so you can create some fairly wacky effects, but you can also create something that looks pretty good as well. Now over on the right hand side of the card you will find that we have 2 PCI 8-pin connectors, as this does require a fair amount of power to get this thing running. And then you've also got 2 fan headers, so if you want to hook this up to your case fans and then have your case fans react to your GPU temperature versus your CPU temperature, then you can do that, and that is actually going to be quite useful, especially in cases where the CPU isn't really doing much, but then your GPU really does need to. And then finally we have what looks like an RGB header on the side as well for hooking up to an RGB strip. So that's everything you need to know in terms of the design of the card, but the performance of this thing is where it shines. Now in terms of acoustics and thermals, this ran at just under 70 degrees under full load. I think the max I've seen it hit is 68 degrees, and it's quieter than the 1080 is. And to really hammer this point home, can you hear that? I have the card running at the moment behind me. That's what that is. It's Valley Benchmark on the 1080 Ti, and you just can't hear it. It's almost inaudible unless you're really trying to hear it in a silent room. Second you're wearing headphones, second you've got any sort of music coming out of your speakers at all, you cannot hear it at all. And that's the thing that impressed me the most about this card. I was expecting it to be louder than the 1080 Ti, than the 1080 Strix, which wasn't loud, but you could definitely hear it. It was quite a bit louder than the 1070. So yes, it's a shame that we've gone to 2.5 slots, because it does mean that some people won't be able to fit this in their case, but it is totally worth it if you can fit it in there, because the acoustics and the thermals of this thing are just, you know, fair play to Asus. It's fantastic. And the good news doesn't stop there, because the performance of this thing is frankly ridiculous. Looking at the benchmarks you'll see here on screen, I tested this in Mass Effect Andromeda, Hitman, 3D Mark, and what was the other one? I can't remember. Batman Arkham Knight, and it was way faster than everything else. The R9 Fury is AMD's fastest air-cooled card, which is why it's in this test. It did play a little bit funny with my monitor at 1440p, which is why there is no R9 Fury 1440p benchmarks. And if you're wondering why the maximum resolution here is an ultra-wide resolution of 3840 by 1600, it's because that's the LG UC99 monitor I'm currently using. So if you want 4K, then take a little bit off the numbers, but if you want that 3440 by 1440 ultra-wide, then obviously add a little bit on. And it's just incredible, isn't it? I was really blown away with how good this thing performs. It's over 20 frames a second faster in pretty much everything I threw at it. at the native resolution of my monitor, which is a big deal, and especially in terms of minimum frame rates as well. You pair this with a G-Sync monitor and it's just going to be ridiculous. The 1080 was good, this is better. So there you go, the GTX 1080 Ti. Frankly ridiculous when it comes to performance, it's faster than everything else, and if you demand the best, then this is it. And in terms of value for money, it's very difficult to say, because £800 for a graphics card is very ridiculous, and is something that I think most people would never even consider spending, let alone being able to afford that much money for a graphics card in the first place. But if you have a lot of money to spend, you want the best, you've got a high-res monitor and you want to drive it at ultra settings, then this is going to be your best bet. And in terms of value for money, it depends how you look at it. It's £800, which is cheaper than the Titan was, but obviously it's more expensive than that 1080. So take a closer look at my benchmarks, take a look at some other people's, look at the resolution and the refresh rate you're wanting to drive, and then you can make an informed decision. But in terms of this card, I have no choice but to give this the top purchase award, because I've never seen anything quite like it. It's frankly outlandish performance, and the thing that really makes it better than the 1080 was, in terms of this particular Strix version, is that it's inaudible. So you can't really ask for any more from this card. And while it's not something I would personally spend £800 on unless I was really, really well off, which sadly I'm not, the top purchase award here I think is appropriate. So there you go. What do you think of this card? Let me know down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button if you haven't hit the dislike button. Thanks to Asus for providing this loaner review sample. Yes, it's sadly got to go back. And it's probably worth disclosing the fact that obviously this isn't a sponsored video at all, but they did pay for me to go to the ROG event last weekend to check out their new products. But obviously I pride myself on impartiality, so hopefully you can trust my verdict. So there you go, a massive thank you once again, and I'll see you in the next video.